Good morning. Shane and Peter, you guys are real early. You guys are early, and we'll get started right at 9.
Yes. So when Jason said he would say, I'm a lawyer and I run this program, I said, well, I thought you knew more about me. So in the little time we have before Harvey comes on, just so you guys know who I am. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm 68 years old. And I was born in inner city Cleveland. Probably here in Long Beach would probably be like North Long Beach, except we didn't have grass. And in fact, black folk lived on one side of town, white folk lived on the other side of town. There was no interaction at all. And I met my first white person when I was in the 6th grade. In a summer program, I had done really well on one of these standardized tests. And so they sent me for 6 weeks down to Oberlin College. That's when I met the first white person. I never had met or talked. I mean, I had teachers, but not friends or acquaintances. And that program that Wade Manning talked about, he was in the 7th grade. I was in that same program in the 6th grade. I was also in the program at John Carroll University, 6 weeks in the summer. During 7th grade, I was in a 6-week program. In the summer of the 8th grade, I was in a 6-week program. In the summer of 9th grade, I was in a 6-week program. Between the summer of my 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. So from the 6th grade to the 12th grade, I went to school year round, basically. And I also played baseball, basketball, and football. So, but we didn't play baseball, basketball, football like you guys do today. We played football from September to maybe December. Basketball started late November, early December through the spring. And then baseball went from spring to summer. And so at an early age, I got exposed to situations that gave me an opportunity to compete against kids that I didn't believe I could compete against. But once I was given the opportunity, I showed that I can compete against them. And so that gave me confidence going into college. I knew I was going to be successful. I didn't know what I was going to be successful at. I mean, my dad was an alcoholic. He was never there. He didn't come to, if you work backwards from my wedding to the birth of his grandsons, to my law school graduation, high school graduation, college graduation, birth, he didn't come to anything. Okay, but rather than use that as an excuse, I learned to use that just like Andrew, you use no. You use no as a vitamin. And so I use the lack of interest that my dad had in me as a vitamin. And I use it as motivation to try to get his attention. So I was achieving to try to get his attention. Now, I never got his attention, but in the process, I went from a little black boy on 84th and Quincy to one of the greatest attorneys of our time. And so just like I did that, you guys can do that in whatever field it is you choose. But then you have to do, and you've heard this over and over again from people as well, I mean, you can't achieve the kind of success that I've achieved unless you do the kind of stuff that I've done. Okay, and so I went to school year round. Now, you don't necessarily have to go year round, but school's got to be important, right? I went year round even though I was playing 3 sports. Sports was never a priority for me. I mean, I played, I loved it, but I played more for the camaraderie, for the friendships. I still talk to guys I played high school basketball with, college basketball with, but I was never trying to go to the NBA in sports, but I did want to be involved in sports. And I didn't know how. So I had a person like me come into my life when I was your age And they told me, well, if you want to do that, you'd probably be best to become a lawyer, because these guys sign contracts, everything's got legal ramifications. And so if you become a lawyer, then you can have a lot of different options and choices in terms of where you want to go. I mean, I could be the president of a college, I could be a dean of a school, I could be the CEO of a company, or I could be a lawyer advising all those different people. But one of the things I realized when I did get into the legal practice was that the way you move up is you generate business, or you work 24 hours a day. And I wasn't trying to work 24 hours a day. And I didn't know how I could generate business coming from where I came from, because I didn't know CEOs and I didn't know guys who worked at companies who could give me business. And so I looked at these guys playing sports, right? Because now when I was younger, this guy named Mark McCormick, who is from Cleveland, had started this company called IMG. And IMG would become, well, it was the first company to represent pro athletes. He represented Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus, two of the greatest golfers of all time. And I used to read stories about this guy in downtown Cleveland. From my house is only about 20 minutes. So this guy who opened up this field called player representation was 20 minutes away from me. And they was writing about him in the newspaper, and they were writing about things he was doing. And so I just followed him, you know, during my young days and into high school and into college. And I said, well, I'm gonna do what that guy did, because if he can do it, and he doesn't come from where all these ball players are coming from, he can't hardly relate to them, then I can do that. And so that's the goal that I set in high school. I was going to be involved in the sports industry, not as a player, but I was going to become a lawyer, and I was going to represent pro athletes. So somebody said here, one of the things that they've learned is you set goals. I think Donovan said stay ready. I don't know who said set goals, but so I set a goal in high school that I was going to become a person that represented pro athletes. And 15 years later, I was representing a guy named Clark Kellogg, who they call the first LeBron and the next Magic. He would be a runner-up for Rookie of the Year. He averaged a double-double as a rookie. Only 5 guys in NBA history have done that, and the rest was history. So goal setting, I set a goal, and then this hard work that someone said that they learned, max effort. That's the only way I know how to go. Is hard. I don't know about relaxing and taking it easy. I don't have time to relax. I mean, even now that I'm 68 and I should be relaxed, I'm investing in you guys because I see in you guys the same thing that Mr. Parker saw in me, right? I see the same thing. And so I know you could do as much as I've done, you could do more than what I've done. Again, if you stay focused, that's what Darius said, stay focused. And that focus, that means you gotta be careful about who you associate with, how you spend your time, because you don't even know, nobody on this call knows how much time they have to be alive. And so you don't have time to waste. And you guys are young, and so you don't understand that because you think you're gonna live forever, and you can do something later. In fact, one of the reason I was representing these guys, I was convincing them that they needed to be able to leverage their involvement in sports so they could set themselves up for the rest of their life, right? But that means you have to be good at something other than sports. And so Clark Kellogg, for example, he wanted to be a broadcaster. And you guys have seen him for the last 25 or so years broadcasting college basketball, NBA basketball. He's the #1 guy on CBS. He replaced Billy Packer as the #1 guy on CBS. But he told me going into the league that this is what he wanted to do. And I think McCall has said he's identified broadcasting as what he wants to do if he doesn't go to the NBA. And so what Clark Kellogg, he said that coming into the league. And so we got him speech therapists and all kind of folk to work on his presentation, how he presented himself, how he articulated his words and his thoughts. And while he was dropping doubles on Larry Bird and Kevin McCall and Barkley and them guys, he was working on himself. Because we got a saying in the program, some of you guys have heard us say this, if you work on your game, you might make a living. But if you work on you, then you can make a fortune. So while Clark was working on his game, he was also working on himself. And so even though he was Rookie of the Year, and even though he averaged a double-double, it's only 5 guys in the history of the league have done. 4 years into his NBA career, injury happened, career over. He went into the NBA at 19, and so in 5 years, he was only 24. And many guys would think that their life is over. But he's only 24 years old, but he's played 5 years in the NBA, and his career is over. But because he was focused, because he had a plan B, somebody mentioned that, so because he put in max effort on everything he did, and he started with the Who, right? And the Who, in his case, when Clark Kellogg was coming out, because again, he was the next Magic and the first LeBron, that meant he had the top guys in the business of representing players coming after him. He had David Falk, who ran a company called ProServe that represented Michael Jordan and James Worthy and every player that came out of Georgetown, every player came out of North Carolina. Mark McCormick and IMG, who represented everybody else, came after him. And here comes this guy, Everett Glenn, who has never represented a player in his life. But I'm competing against 2 of the biggest firms in the business with proven track records. And so you would ask yourself, well, how was I able to convince Clark Kellogg that he'd be all right if he chose me versus David Falk or ProServe? Well, that's because I had prepared along the way, and I was able to distinguish myself from them guys because while they had represented a bunch of players, they had never practiced law at the level I had practiced law. Because before I represented players, I represented Fortune 500 companies like Wells Fargo and Atari and Microsoft and just a whole bunch of companies. I worked at one of the largest law firms in the whole world in San Francisco. And we had a roster of Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. So I was doing transactions in the hundreds of millions and the billions for folk who didn't play no basketball, no football, or whatever. They just made a lot of money. And so I convinced Clark that I could use those same skills over on the side of representing players. In fact, I was better qualified when you look at what you actually really need. So I convinced Clark to look at the who, not the what. Not what these guys had did, but look at who they are. And none of them have my background, none of them have my experience. In fact, none of them could get a job at my firm, Clark. So they tell me you're a smart guy. And so you ought to be able to make that distinction. Here it is on black and white. And I was able to make that connection with him. And like Darius says, the rest was history. Again, I had 15 first-round picks in 3 years. I was the only guy, again, then when I did it, and even to this date, no individual lawyer has represented multiple first-round draft picks in the NBA or multiple first-round draft picks in the NFL. And I represented multiple first-round picks in the NBA twice. I represented multiple first-round picks in the NFL twice. And nobody, black or white, has ever represented multiple first-round picks in the NBA and the NFL in the same draft year. I mean, because right now, you guys are, making your way up the ladder to try to become pro athletes. And if you are successful, you're going to meet a guy who's going to tell you he represents basketball players, or he represents baseball players, or he represents soccer players, or they even get more specific in the sport. Like I represent running backs, or I represent quarterbacks. And I'm like, what are they talking about? I just represent folk trying to make some money. I don't care what sport you play. But I had the background and the training to do that, whereas these other guys had focused on a single sport. I just became the best lawyer I could become. And just like Clark Kellogg, when I represented Clark Kellogg when he came out, so the next year, maybe it was the year after Clark came out, Clyde Drexler. Some of you guys may have heard of Clyde Drexler. Clyde is in the Hall of Fame. He was part of this Phi Slamma Jamma or Phi Slamma Jamma team at University of Houston. They won the national championship. And I took Clark Kellogg with me to meet Clyde Drexler in Houston to try to get his business, right? And I'll never forget the scene. We was in the restaurant and Clark was sitting down, and then Clyde, when he came into the restaurant, I went to greet him and I brought him back to the table. And Clark Kellogg, Clark's about 6'8", but he's a big 6'8". He looks like he's about 6'10" because he's long. He's got, his legs look about 6'8", And he stood up. And when he stood up, as he was standing up, he reached where Clyde Drexler was, and then he stood up taller than Clyde Drexler. I never forget when Clyde Drexler said, "Wow, man, you play small forward," because that's the position Clyde Drexler played. And he's looking at, am I going to have to match up with you? And Clark said, "No, man, I play forward. I don't play small forward. I don't play big forward. I just play forward." So just like I had become prepared to respond to anything, so had Clark in just playing the game, right? And so I went from nothing to everything. I didn't even imagine the kind of life that I had, because I had never seen that except on television, right? And then I got caught up in drugs, right? Some of you guys know that, but when this was the 70s, 80s, it was a big drug culture anyway. But I had never used drugs because I was an athlete and I was a student. And but I went to a party, right? And so you guys listen to this. I went to a party. I had never done drugs. I knew about drugs because I came straight from the streets, but I had never put drugs in my body. And I go to this party and they got lots of drugs. I mean, I had seen drugs. I mean, I know what they were, but I just wasn't interested. And so we're sitting around, it's a group of us, and they pull out a plate full of cocaine. I'm telling you, I didn't even know what it was. And they started passing it around. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what am I going to do when this plate gets to me? And then I start thinking about, like I'm from 84 for Quincy, I'm a tough guy, and so I can't, if I don't do what everybody else doing, they're gonna think I'm a punk, right? Anybody ever felt like that? Anybody ever felt like if they don't follow the crowd, they don't do some stupid shit because they see other people doing it, somehow that's gonna reflect negatively on them? Well, if you haven't felt that way, you keep living, and sooner or later you're gonna have that feeling. And the question becomes, what do you do? Well, I made the wrong choice, right? I chose to partake because I didn't want these guys to think I was a chump, right? And that single decision set me back 3 years. It took 3 years for me to unwind myself from drugs, okay? And the only way I was able to do that was because I was a tough guy who had grown up on 84th and Quincy, and I knew that I couldn't go out like this. I couldn't go out. I couldn't let, you know, a drug take me out when I survived gunshots and gangs and all kind of crazy stuff. So I can't let no drug take me out. I did too much for that. And I also learned at that time I never really had a strong relationship, a spiritual relationship or connection. I didn't go to church or anything like that. But I knew about God, and I mean, you know, but I thought all the good fortune that was happening in my life was just because I was putting in hard work. I didn't understand that I had been shown grace and mercy. And I understand all of that today now. And so once I found out that was, if I could latch on to something greater than myself, then I could get out of this craziness. And that's what I did. And so I turned to Christ. And so now I'm a believer. Everything I do is based on that belief. In fact, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing for you guys, is because of what Christ did for me. I mean, and what I've learned is that the only way you keep what you have is by giving it away. And I've learned that it's better to give than to receive. And I've learned that no matter what you have done in your life, that you can come back from it. And so today, I can proudly say and do, and then know that I've defeated it. I don't think about drugs, but I'm telling you guys, at one point in your life, you're gonna have to make a choice. Somebody's gonna put some drugs in front of you if they haven't already done so. And then you may think like I did at that time that I could handle it, but I didn't even know what it was. I don't know how could I say I could handle it. I never did it, right? And I did handle it initially, I guess, but it wasn't long before it was handling me. And so what I would say today is I wouldn't even mess around with it. In fact, if somebody put some drugs in front of me, I mean, they could do it now. I would just ignore it because I know it's poison. But you're gonna have to make that choice. And I'm telling you, you make the wrong choice, it could set you back. But even if it sets you back, you can still come back from that. But rather than getting set back, just avoid it so you don't have that bump in your life. Because most people don't come back. Most people don't come back. I mean, the guys that I did drugs with, most of them are dead, in jail, all kind of stuff. So, and so after I came back, you know, from it, and my wife, she didn't want me to go back to representing players because she thought that it was the environment that led me to do drugs. And while I disagreed, one of the things I learned through the program that my way wasn't always the best way. And so I deferred to my wife. And so rather than resume a career representing players, I just resumed my career just practicing law at a high level, just doing corporate work. So I've done real estate and banking and finance for some of the biggest companies in this country. But I was a pioneer in that space. So a lot of people knew me. I knew a lot of people. And so about 7 years ago, I decided I wanted to do something to help guys like you. And what I would do is I would reconnect with all my sports connections and my network with business executives and that sort of thing. So we started giving these events at Super Bowls. So from Super Bowl 44 in Miami to Super Bowl 50 in San Francisco, we recognized this guy named John Wooden, who is considered the godfather in sports, or in the NFL at least. And like the godfather, his level of influence knows no limits. So we were celebrating him, and through those celebrations of him at Super Bowls 44 to 50, I was able to reconnect with everybody I knew in sports, from, you know, head coaches to general managers to the commissioners and everybody. And then we said we were going to have this program for guys like you, and then we could pull all those people in, right? So that's why we have the Rams and the Chargers and the Lakers and the Clippers and the Dodgers and the Angels and AEG that we talked to last night, and Microsoft, and all these folk who believe in you. They believe in you because they believe in me, and they figure if I say you guys are worth it, that you're worth it, and so we have a great thing going here. I'm telling you guys, and if you can stay the course, then you all are going to win. Period. You all win. You stay the course. I mean, you've already met folk like the guys on the phone call last night. The one guy was 33 years old. And RJ, how old are you?
15.
Okay, so how many years before you get into the workforce? I mean, as a Major League Baseball player or engineer or whatever, how many years you think before that happens? Unmute yourself. So you're in the 10th grade, so you get 2 more years of high school. You get 2 more years of high school, you get 4 years of college, and say you go grad school for a couple of years if you don't go pro. So in about 10 years, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to make some money. Your mom gonna stop paying all these bills, stop buying you sneakers and everything. And in 10 years, but the guy you met last year, how old will he be in 10 years? He was 30.
40 something.
43. So
yeah, 43.
He's still, in fact, so he'd be young enough to still help you, right? If he's only gonna be 40 something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other guy wasn't much older than him. The guy who's the director of marketing for AEG Presents. So you guys are meeting guys that can come in. You know, I mean, you guys have met more. Some of you have met more than others. But if you stay the course, you're gonna all meet these guys, and so your future, whether it's in sports or outside of sports or doing something behind the scenes in sports, if you just stay the course, we're gonna open doors for you. And the more you show up, the more you help us go get the resources to help you. Do you understand what I'm saying? By you guys showing up today, for example, it's 45 of you on the call. By you showing up, we can take that information to folk who can help us provide more resources to help you. In fact, we're gonna be rolling out in the next week or so a reading program that's gonna supplement Dreambox, because we can't waste 6 months, which is what's happening. You guys haven't been in school in a few months. You're not gonna be in school for the summer. The way it looks, you might not be going back full time, full speed in the fall, and that's too much time to waste in terms of learning. And so we're going to try to step in the gap, provide some other resources to you guys, and that's a program called Light Sail. We'll be talking more about that in a little bit. But my whole life, man, everything that you guys have said about what it takes, plan B. Well, I didn't have a plan B. That's the only thing, because I had been convinced from the time I was in middle school to the time I was in high school that I could do whatever I put my mind to. And so I didn't have a plan B. I just had a plan A. Okay. And you really don't need a plan B unless you're trying to do something like sports, where the numbers are so stacked against you mathematically. Doesn't mean you can't make it, but you know, only 1% of guys who play sports in high school ever get paid. That's a fact. But now becoming a lawyer, I knew that although 100% of the folk who graduate law school don't become lawyers, that's because 100% of the people who graduate law school don't pass the bar exam. But 70% of the folk who graduate law school pass the bar exam, or 50% or something like that in California. I don't know what it was. I didn't really need to know what the odds were, because I knew I was going to pass the state bar, because I had that same attitude that Wade Manning talked about last week. I mean, failure wasn't even an option, because I had prepared all along the way. So I just had a plan A. My plan A was I was going to become a lawyer. I was going to work at a big law firm. I was going to get a lot of experience. And then I was going to go back and I was going to share that knowledge and experience with folk look like you guys. And that's exactly what I have done. Now, the first time I did it, I made a lot of money doing it. Now, I'm not making no money doing it for you guys, but I don't need to make money now. I'm trying to help make men. That's what we're about, trying to turn you guys from boys to men. And I'm proud of all of you, because I've seen growth in all of you. Shakar was a knucklehead, we met him. But he's standing up strong today, Shakar. I'm so proud of the changes I've seen in his life. And I don't see him all the time, but when I see him, he looks different, he talks different, he carries himself different. And that's what this thing is all about, man. I'm breaking up. Am I breaking up still?
No, you're not. You're not.
Okay, I must have been standing. So what time is it now? I don't even know. So we already, so October thought the meeting was at 10, but it's at 9. So our guest is going to come on in a few minutes. I don't know, has he logged on? Can we tell?
No, I didn't see him log on. If he logged on with it. He said he would join at 10. That's what his assistant said.
Yeah, Harvey Mason will be on at 10. Anybody got any questions? So now you guys, when if somebody asks you, who is this guy, Mr. Glenn, you could tell him that he's a sinner saved by grace. You could tell him he's did some stuff in sports that nobody has done since he did it. Tell him I've been practicing real estate and banking law. I've worked at some of the largest law firms in this whole country. I was the first Black in the city attorney's office. I forgot about that in the city of Long Beach. I've done a lot of firsts, but that's because I'm 68 years old. So you guys, I was, but again, everything I've done is to open up doors for guys like you. So again, I'm just really happy that you guys have decided to invest in yourselves. And again, if you just keep on coming back, you'll find out that the program works, and your chances of success are going to be increased, and the level of success is going to be increased. It's one thing we want you guys to do some breakthrough stuff, not just go to college, get a degree, get a job. You don't need me to do that. But to become great, you're going to need some help. And I see Atoba's on here, so I'm going to turn it over to Atoba. So you know a little bit more about me than you knew before. There's a lot more. I got a wonderful wife from Ethiopia, and I got 4 sons. My oldest son is a lawyer. My second son got his master's. He lives and works in New York. My third son is my, I don't know, I shouldn't say my black sheep. But he's going on a different path, but you know, he's staying out of trouble, and I don't have to get him no money. And then you guys have met Daniel. That's my youngest son. Daniel's at UC Santa Barbara. He played at basketball at Loyola. He graduated from Millikan, though. He came over here back as a senior. So you want to jump in, Atoba? We got, I guess I'll have to jump back in to introduce Harvey, but I see you're on board with us.
Absolutely. So did you guys all mention Aubrey yet?
I'm sorry?
Have you guys mentioned Aubrey?
No, we haven't.
So perfect. Good morning, everybody. So
Good morning.
Morning. Aubrey.
Natty Ice.
Good morning.
How you doing, man?
I'm
Good.
Perfect. So yeah, I wanted to start off the meeting. Sorry, I'm a little late, everybody. I want to start off the meeting giving a quick moment of silence to Ahmaud Arbery. I know everybody's aware of it. You guys have heard it in the social media, the news. And yeah, I think it's really important at this time we just take a moment in silence for a full minute to just honor him. And then after that, I want to get some feedback and discuss it. Is everyone cool with that?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm gonna start the timer now. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. So I want to go around real quick, and I know this is a sad, kind of sore topic, but it's really important that we discuss it. And I kind of want to go around and just, from those of you who have heard of it and do know a little bit, to go around and kind of speak on behalf of what you've heard.
I heard that he was a dog in his neighborhood, and this father and son, they're white, and they just shot him, thought he was a thief or a robber.
Yeah, thank you. Dylan?
They say, oh,
Perfect. No, it's perfect. Go ahead.
they say it was an unauthorized citizen's arrest.
Anyone else want to speak up?
I heard the same thing that McCall said because our mom told us about it.
Thank you. So as you all know, this is Boss. And at the end of the day, everything we do stands behind pillars. Mentally boss, physically boss, socially boss, economically boss, spiritually boss, emotionally boss. As young men of color in this world, in society, these injustices. It's just not a fair world. And this opportunity, what we're in right now, is to give you guys a platform, a head start, a community, a foundation for you guys to make the world a better place. Because it's not fair. It's really, really not. And so I just want to say, I really appreciate not only Everett, but you guys for showing up every single day, because you guys don't have to. You guys see everybody else around you. You see other boys your age who don't have these opportunities and aren't necessarily going to have the footstep to make it where they're going to go as easily, you know, with the support and the love and the discipline, the rigor. But all of that's just super important, because it's where you guys are now and where you guys are heading. And so it's important that we recognize those around us who don't have the same opportunities and use that to push us that much more further to where we're going. In sports, academics, and our careers. So one day, things like this stop. Can we get a boss clap? Makai, you want to lead us?
Boss. Boss. All right.
If we are to achieve these things, we must understand and use the boss pillars to lead us to success in a place where we create the change in society that we want. We must remember these boss pillars. So I want to go around and kind of go through the boss pillars right now. And I want you to talk about not only the boss pillars that you've seen make a significant and huge change in your life, but that you want to continue to embody as you go further in sports, academics, social, anywhere within your life. Can we talk about the boss pillars that you guys feel like you've identified with for the 2 years, the couple months, or the couple of weeks since you've even been within this program?
Socially boss, kind of.
Break it down.
Like from when I first joined the program to now, like, I carry myself differently. I talk to different people differently. I learned how to have more. I don't want to say it. How to have more of a like more sensible mindset, just to be able to just improve myself. Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Mentally, boss. It just taught me how to have the mindset to always want to win and get better.
Can you repeat that? Your mic's a little low.
For mentally, boss, I said it changed my mindset to want to win and get better every day and to do my best at everything I do.
Thank you. We're not calling names today. Step up.
Can we name more than one?
Please.
Mentally, emotionally, and physically boss. Mentally, I was able to separate my physically and emotionally separate when I'm playing sports. I can shut my emotions out and I can improve my success when I'm focused instead of focusing on what other people are saying or what I'm thinking. And I feel like I've started to excel academically even more so, even since I started boss.
Excellent.
Probably mentally boss, because like I realized that I should take my education more seriously and not just all sports, because in the end you'll always have like what's up here.
I like mentally boss too, because I like to think of being strong-minded when situations get hard. I like to stay focused and don't let myself get down.
Excellent, guys. Keep it going.
I say socially boss because I try to involve myself with people that's going somewhere and not people that aren't doing anything and being lazy.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Who's next?
Good morning.
You got 47 people on the
Good
squad.
morning.
Well, I would say economically, boss, because like I've started to get allowance and I've started to saving and like investing in things that I may need or want.
That makes me really happy to hear. Noah, what you got for us?
I think socially boss because at work, I talk to people that are doing big things. That I can, get on their path or do better than them.
Step up. Who's next?
I would say mentally boss because you need to have the right mindset to get through this situation.
Sure. "47 people. There's more of y'all. Come on.
Emotionally boss because I can express my emotions and how I feel.
You said so you can express who you are and how you feel?
Yes.
That's beautiful.
I would say socially boss because I've surrounded myself with more people that are going the same path as me and stuff, and with that have bright futures ahead of them and stuff. So, yeah, like stuff like that.
All right, guys. Harvey Mason Jr. has joined us. I'm going to let him introduce himself, and Marvin can, or Marcus can pull him up on the screen, but I'll just tell you briefly that he's boss. Okay, that's for sure. He looked boss. He's a former high school basketball player, played basketball at the University of Arizona on the 1988 Final Four team with Steve Kerr and Sean Elliott. I thought Bill Warner was going to be on the call. Bill Warner was the all-time leading scorer at Arizona before, I guess when he left out of there. Bill Warner, he said he's met you. He's on our kitchen cabinet. He may join the call. But he went from basketball to music to become an entrepreneur, quite successful. And I'll let him tell you his story, but without any further ado, just please give a a boss welcome. And Shakar or Eliza, read that, the boss welcome to our guest.
All right.
Boss.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm imagining I'm hearing you all clapping. Thank you. It's a little strange on the Zoom, but thank you for having me. Very excited to meet all of you, and it was really cool getting to hear some of the things you were talking about before you turn it over to me. I want to first of all start by explaining where I came from, and so you guys can understand who I am. I was exactly in a position you all are, coming up in middle school and high school, dreaming of playing sports, but also thinking about my life. When I started, all I cared about was hooping, playing ball, working out, trying to get ready, trying to be a good middle school player in 8th grade, trying to be a good high school player as I got older, and then ultimately trying to go to college and play in college. But there were a lot of steps along the way that I'll talk to you about, which I think you'll find some parallels, or you'll find some commonality between what I've done and my experiences and what you guys are going through right now, which I think is important. So as an 8th grader, I played every sport, loved baseball, football, basketball, and I tried out for all the teams in my 8th grade year and actually got cut from basketball. I was good at baseball, good at football, ran track and field, but my basketball coach cut me from the team, didn't think I was very good. And that really, really motivated me, and it made me want to focus on basketball. For some reason, I was hard-headed or really determined, but I said, I don't want to play the other sports anymore. I want to play basketball. That's the one I love. It's the one I want to get better at. And so I started training every day, shooting, lifting, running, getting in shape. So next year when I came back and tried out, I was the best player on the team. And I'd made that jump from 8th grade to 9th grade and ended up obviously making the team and playing varsity basketball. But it took that year of adversity and that year of really hard work and the year of failure and having people tell me that I was not going to be good enough to do something to really motivate and inspire me. So important lesson number one for me came in 8th grade, which was you're going to have failure. You're going to have people tell you that you can't accomplish something. And through sports and through working hard and being persistent and not quitting and understanding the value of goal setting and understanding the importance of having a bar of expectation that you hold yourself to, through those lessons, I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish in that year. So by 9th grade, again, I was playing varsity basketball. I ended up being all CIF or all state for 3 years in a row. My senior year in high school, I was All-American and ended up getting recruited to pretty much every school in the country and chose to play for University of Arizona. I got to the University of Arizona feeling very confident and knowing that I was a great basketball player and wasn't worried about much else in my life other than playing sports. Got to Arizona, and first week on campus, I met my teammates and got to spend some time with different players on the team and realized that I'd worked from 8th grade to get to here. And then now I was in college and I was going to need to go to here, maybe to here, right off the top of the screen. And so I spent time watching Steve Kerr working out, Sean Elliott working out, Kenny Lofton. Some of these guys are guys that you may have heard of as coaches or announcers or retired players, but these were all the best basketball players in the country at that time. And I came into Arizona and I saw what they were doing and I said, wow, this is inspiring. This is something to aspire to, something to work towards. So I reset, went back to the bottom of the totem pole after being All-American, leading the state of California and scoring for 2 years in a row, went back to the bottom of the totem pole to try and figure out how I was going to work my way back up. And again, next life lesson, don't get over confident and don't be full of yourself and don't feel that you are the best at what you're doing, because you always have work to do. You always have improvement. You always have things you can learn. Be humble, be gracious, be open-minded, and accept the fact that there's a long ways to go in anything you're doing. At this point, for me, it was sports focused. Again, I'm just giving you the lessons that I learned through sports. Then we'll talk about how I translated them. But at that point, I watched Steve Kerr. I watched him shoot. I watched him work out. I watched Sean Elliott. I watched these other players, and I got to be around my head coach, whose name was Lute Olson, who's a Hall of Fame basketball coach. And I realized the amount of work it was going to take and the amount of humbling myself. Remember, I'm an All-American leading the state of California, basketball state, leading the state in scoring, and going to Arizona and saying, wow, I'm not as good as I thought I was. You have to humble yourself. You have to be realistic, but you also have to be willing to learn and open-minded. So I took everything I could in. I learned from Steve. I learned from my coach. I learned from my teammates. I grew and grew and grew, improved. If I had taken the wrong attitude and said, I'm the best player here, I don't need to listen to anybody, I'm great at what I do, I don't need to get better, I don't need your information, I don't need your input, I would have stayed at the bottom of the totem pole. But I was fortunate enough to have good people in my life to teach me and tell me, Harvey, you got to pay attention to what's going on. You need to learn. You need to listen. So second important lesson, again, was humbling myself and learning. Still maintaining my first lesson, which was expectations of high standards and high bar, being very persistent, being very passionate, never quitting, never letting somebody keep me down. And then coupling that with the fact that I could be humble, I could learn, I could grow, and I could evolve. I could change my game. So as a junior and senior, I started at Arizona, had a very good career, but I wasn't a big scorer. I wasn't known for scoring 50, 60 points like I was in high school. I was a great team player. I was a great defender, very quick. Started as point guard and shooting guard on 2 teams, went to the Final Four, went to the Elite 8 twice, and had a really good career. But it was because I was able to adapt, and I was able to be humble. I was able to listen and learn. So my senior year in college, I faced more adversity. I tore my ACL, which is a ligament in your knee. It's basically a career-ending injury when I was playing. Now it's something you can come back from, and we've seen a lot of good players. Klay Thompson just had a torn ACL. He'll come back. He'll be strong. He'll be great. But at that time, it was 1990, a long time ago. The technology wasn't the same as it is now. ACL injury was pretty much a career ender. You could come back from it, but it would take a few years. And I didn't have a few years. I was a senior in college. So at that point, I faced a second set of adversities, which was first was the 8th grade getting cut. Then it was coming to Arizona, not being the best player I thought I was. Then it was tearing my ACL and figuring out what I was going to do. Because as a college basketball player, my goal was always to play in the NBA. I knew I was going to be in the NBA. All my friends are going to the NBA. Everybody on my team went to the NBA. I was planning on going to the NBA. Now all of a sudden you're faced with a torn ACL, your senior year. You cannot continue to play basketball. You can't work out. You can't train. You can't play. You can't prepare for the draft. It's a life-changing event. So again, I took some time to figure out what was my next step. What was I going to do? And you guys know, you're athletes. You know how hard that is to have somebody snatch that from you, take that dream from you and say, you can't play basketball anymore. You can imagine what that would feel like to me after having played basketball since I was in really 7th grade, but successfully since 8th and 9th grade. You can't play basketball anymore. So it was a transition. It was taking some of the things that I had learned through sports, which was how to get through adversity, how to hold myself to really high standards, how to expect a lot from myself, and how to be persistent. And so I started focusing on music. I knew I couldn't play sports. I thought, what's my other passion in life? What do I have a talent for? What do I want to do for a career? And I started focusing on music. And I used everything I learned in sports and I applied it to music. And that's not what a lot of people do. And you guys have a distinct advantage. You have a sports background, or you have the background of this organization to utilize in your career going forward. You can use the training that you're getting through sports or through BOSS and apply it to your profession or to your future career, which is what I did as a senior in college, having graduated and torn my ACL. I applied the lessons that I learned of adversity and how to face it, how to come through it, how to set goals, how to hold myself to a high standard, and how to be persistent and not quit. Just because you're knocked down and just because you think you can't do something or somebody tells you can't do something doesn't mean that you're not going to succeed. So I took all that, the lessons of hard work, and I applied it towards my music career. And it's not something everybody does. As I said, a lot of people go through life, they don't have sports, so they don't have boss, so they haven't had the adversity training, or they don't know how to make something of themselves once people tell them they can't, or once they've had self-doubt. They don't have that training. But I was fortunate, I have, and you guys are fortunate now that you have. I looked at the adversity and I realized I couldn't play sports, and I repositioned, I pivoted, I changed my focus, and I took all my energy and all my efforts and I put it towards my career. And I did everything that I could to prepare for a career in music. And I took all the hard work that I dedicated to basketball, and all the hours of weightlifting, and all the hours of doing sprints and stadiums. I took all that hard work and the lessons and the training that I learned, and I would practice piano. I would write songs. I would spend the same hours that I spent on basketball in my little home studio in my dorm, playing on my computer, figuring out how to write songs, listening to other songs, studying other songwriters and producers, and really, almost like I studied Steve Kerr and Luda Olson and Sean Elliott. I would study all the producers that I was inspired by, and I tried to learn everything about their career path and the skills and the craftsmanship that they put into what they did, and I brought that into what I did. So again, taking the lessons that I learned from sports and putting them towards my music career. Now, a lot of you might not be musicians, or you might not have a career in music. Maybe you will. But the objective is to be able to take what you learned from sports and take what you learned from this organization and have that translate. And once I was able to utilize that competitive drive and that hard work and that focus, I found it to be an advantage for me in my career, because most people in life, especially in music, they don't have that training. They're just kind of going through life, hoping for success, talking about success, looking around the corner like, where am I going to find success? I don't know where it is. I think I want to be rich. I think I want to have a nice necklace. I want to have a nice car. I want to have a great house. They're looking for it. They're talking about it, but they don't have the training to get it. I have the training. You have the training. We have the training to figure out what we have to do to accomplish success. I knew for sure I didn't want to be just a normal guy doing some normal job, struggling to pay rent, struggling to find satisfaction in life. I knew I wanted to accomplish something great. It didn't have to be music. I had a drive and a passion. So I took, again, my lessons and I applied them. And the lesson is this: you can't talk about it. You can't think about it. You can't just write it down. Those are all good steps. But the next step and the final step is to put in the work, put in the time and energy and effort that it takes to go from here to there. And then once you get there, then you got to go from here to there. And you have to do that every day. And I'm not trying to preach to you guys. I'm not trying to speak to you like I'm some know-it-all or some expert. I'm giving you my personal experience and my personal opinion. There's nothing you can't accomplish if you are willing to work at it and you work smart. So let me talk a little bit more about my music career, and then we'll go back to that. So as I put all my focus in music, I perfected my craft. I worked hard. I studied. I listened. I learned. I humbled myself again. And my music started to get better. I started to become a better songwriter, a better producer. People started noticing. Artists started hearing my music. People started saying, hey, that Harvey kid's got something good. Let's get him to write some songs for us. And I started to earn a small living. And then that small living started to get bigger, and I started to get better, and I kept working. While other people were going to the beach to hang out with their friends, I was in the studio. While other people were going for 4th of July to have picnics and taking road trips with their friends, I was in the studio. While some people were taking vacations and celebrating milestones in their career, I was working in the studio. I was writing. I was on my piano. I was on the grind every day, without fail and without celebration, without days off, without stopping to enjoy and stopping to think, oh, I really made it. I kept working. I kept perfecting. And so over a period of 4 or 5 years, I got to the point where my music was becoming desirable to artists. So I ended up working with kind of all the biggest artists in the world, Beyonce and Drake and Chris Brown, and all the way back to Whitney Houston and Elton John and Aretha Franklin, people like that. And I started to see the momentum of my hard work and the momentum of my goal setting and my hours and months and years of sacrifice start to pay off. But at that point, I didn't start going on vacation, and I didn't start relaxing. I didn't slow down. Again, I fell back on my training. Even though I didn't have adversity, even though I didn't have a period in my career where I was failing or I wasn't having the success, I used the drive and the hard work and the passion and the humbling of myself and the expectations of very, very high standards to continue to grow and continue to evolve as a music producer and as a musician and evolve my business. Because you have to remember, at this point, I've become an entrepreneur. I'm not just writing songs, I'm running a business. I'm hiring people. I'm signing other songwriters. I'm signing other producers. I'm signing artists. I'm starting a record label. I started a publishing company. So now my business is growing. My songs are becoming more popular. But now I'm thinking, okay, this is great, but I have to continue to grow. I have to evolve. I have to pivot. I have to be flexible. So I started looking at the movie, film, and TV space. And I said, I've done really well on music, but I don't want to stop. I want to continue. So I looked in the music space and the movie space, excuse me, and I transitioned my business. I said, I'm going to continue to do records. I'm going to continue to produce artists, but now I'm going to produce music for film and take my lessons, take my training and grind at that back to the bottom and start over and grow that business. I grew that business. So I was producing music for, all the big movie films. I did, Pitch Perfect. I did Straight Outta Compton. I did Sing. I did a lot of big musical films. I did Dreamgirls. So that part of my business grew and continues to grow as I continue now. But I looked at it and I said, that's not enough. I want to continue. I want to evolve. I want to develop more. So I started producing films. I started with the LeBron James film called More Than a Game, which is actually a movie you guys might enjoy if you haven't seen it. It's about sports and life and brotherhood. Produced and released and distributed that film. I'm now producing a film about Aretha Franklin. I'm also producing a film about a war veteran who writes songs in the basement of Saddam Hussein's palace, which is a crazy film. But all these things are just to tell you that I didn't stop. I didn't just have a sense of satisfaction, a sense of I've really made it. What I did was continued to pivot and continue to grow and continue to evolve. And for me, in talking to you, I'm trying to show you how you as young adults, young men, can take where you are now and continue to grow and continue to pivot, find things that you are passionate about, find things that you want to work hard at, and don't be satisfied, don't settle. Set a bar for yourself of excellence and a very, very high standard. The final step in my evolution, and I hope it's not my final step, but the most recent step in my evolution was to get involved with different philanthropic organizations. The one that I'm probably most passionate about is the Recording Academy. So I ran for chairman of the board of the Recording Academy about a year and a half ago, and I was elected as chair of the board. And if you don't know, the Recording Academy is responsible for the Grammy. So we put on the television show, but we also do advocacy in Washington, D.C., fight for the rights of music creators and artists in general, so that we make sure when somebody downloads a song, we get paid. Somebody streams a song, we get paid. We make sure that the copyrights are protected and people can't just take our songs and do anything they want with them. They also protects us in the future as to how artificial intelligence is going to play a role in the arts. Computers can write music. Are they going to replace humans? Are we going to still be able to retain copyright ownership? Things like that. The Recording Academy is also involved in. And finally, the Academy does a lot of work with music in the schools. So making sure that people can be exposed to music in early education, elementary school, things like that. Make sure people have instruments and music teachers. That's the Recording Academy. So I was chairman of the board. And then I was instituted into the role of president and CEO about 4 months ago. So I run the Recording Academy. I'm responsible for the Grammy show. So that comes up in January, hopefully, if we can get out of being sheltered in place. But those are some of the things we do at the Academy. And the reason I tell you that is because it's never something I expected that I would be doing. It's something that was an evolution and the next step in my journey. And I tell a lot of people this, that as long as you're not doing anything illegal or harmful to people or, hurting yourself, there's no wrong steps in your journey. There's no wrong roads to go down. I strongly believe that as long as you are coming from a place of passion and a place of hard work and experiencing new things that you think could take you somewhere else and you could evolve your life. There's no wrong roads. So somebody said, well, you should be chairman of the Recording Academy. And I said, you know what, that sounds like I can do something really good there. I'm going to go down that road. And again, as long as you're not hurting people or doing anything illegal or hurting yourself, there's no wrong road. I really prescribe to the theory of people overanalyze and overstress, overthink a lot of things. If you feel passionate about something and you feel like it's something you can do and it's something you want to work hard at and you can bring good from, then you do that. You know, I have kids and I encourage them to make decisions and I encourage them to fall back on the training that they have, similar to the training that I have, similar to the training that you guys have, which is if you work hard, if you're passionate about it, you're smart, you work smart, you can accomplish great things. So my history has shown that you can transition from sports and you can learn the valuable lessons that you take from sports and you can apply them to your life. You can apply them to your careers. You can apply them to entrepreneurship. You can do pretty much any career that you have a passion for if you can realize that it's a very similar correlation to sports. It's really about hard work. It's about being competitive. It's about wanting to be the best. And some people don't agree with me when I say this, but it's about winning. You know, I love to win. I like to be the best. I like to be number one. I fight for the respect of people that I respect. I want people to look at what I accomplished and say, that person did it the right way. They accomplished something great. They did something special. Maybe that's not for everybody. Like Michael Jordan says in The Last Dance, it's just how I am. Like, I like to win in everything. So facing adversity early taught me how to push through that, taught me how to get to a place of being successful, being able to set goals, being able to work really, really hard and be persistent and passionate got me to the place where I could be successful and win. Being able to be humbled, being able to listen and learn, being able to study and be a student of the craft that you want to do has enabled me to win and be successful. And also being able to pivot and being able to transition and evolve and grow has allowed me to win and be successful. And those are all things that I got from an early age through sports, through coaches, through my teammates. And I try and encourage these lessons to other people. I think in the future, a lot of people will say, well, Harvey, what are you going to do next? My company is growing to a point where I'm really, really excited about it. I really feel like we can continue to do great things in entertainment, music, film, television, and I can also continue to develop through the Academy. Now, my role at the Academy as president and CEO is only for 1 year. I agreed to do that so that I could focus on the other things that I want to do in life. I'm very passionate about the Academy, but I do think that there's probably somebody else that's going to come in and be the president and CEO. But I'll continue to do the things that we do. The other thing I'll tell you is we just recently raised almost $15 million for people that needed help, musicians specifically, and artists that needed help, that were struggling because of COVID, who had lost income, who had lost jobs, who weren't able to participate in shows. We gave away $15 million. That was through the Recording Academy. So those are the kind of things that I look forward to doing in the future, is helping more people, more musicians, more people coming into the entertainment space, and then also continuing to grow my company. So that's a little bit of the background around who I am, where I came from, how I got to where I got. I would love to answer any questions that you guys have, and I can talk more specifically about some of the steps that I took, some of the goals that I set, some of the procedures and processes that I put in place for myself personally and for my company, and now for the Academy. But I really want to make sure that I'm talking specifically to things that you guys want to hear about, instead of just hearing me ramble on and on about myself.
I have a question.
Yep.
I'm asking one. What was your biggest setback during your journey?
My biggest setback was ruining my career to play basketball, tearing my ACL, and not being able to pursue my dream of being in the NBA. That was my biggest setback. And it did take some time. I'm not going to lie and say, oh, I tore my ACL, and the next day I woke up and just said, oh, I'm going to go be in the music business. It took me some time to figure out what I wanted to do. But that kind of goes back into my theory of there's no wrong path. I tore my ACL. I knew I couldn't play basketball. But if I had a thought that there was really only one path for me and there was only one journey for me, I would have been stuck. I would have sat in my dorm room complaining about my knee, worried that I couldn't be in the NBA, and stressed myself out to the point where I would have paralyzed myself. I couldn't have functioned because I would have been so riddled with stress because I thought my path was NBA, NBA, NBA. But because of some of the things that happened in my earlier career, and because of my philosophy of really there's no wrong journey, there's no wrong path, I was able to adapt, and I was able to change gears. And I can't stress how important that is, that you can't let something like some adversity stop you or freeze you or slow you down. It slowed me down a little bit, but I got through it. It took some time, but I got through it. Now I think I'm able to get through those periods quicker because I don't get bogged down in thinking this is what was supposed to happen. I was destined to do this. I was not destined to be in the NBA.
That's right.
That only took me to that point, and that got me to the point that made me turn left and get into writing songs, and that got me into the point where I turned right and started building a company. And that got me in the position where I turned left again and started running the recording academy, and that's going to get me to the point where I turn right and do something else. So for me, it's about a series of journeys. It's not one journey. It's about going here to there to there to there. But as long as you're taking all your values and all of your lessons and your life's work with you from journey to journey to journey, then you will hopefully be successful in all of them. But if one of the roads doesn't work, like my basketball road, and I tore my ACL and I wasn't able to play in the NBA, that's okay. That's part of the journey, and that's an exciting part of it. It's a valuable part of it. You get something great out of that part of it, but that's not the end of it. That was a part, and then you transition to something else. So good question, and that's kind of the way I approach it.
All right, Harvey, Marvin Bishop here in Cleveland. First of all, let me just thank you for sharing with us. It's very obvious that you have implemented inside of you universal principles that we're trying to share, not only share with these young men, but to get them to put these principles inside. Because when you talk about that adversity and how instead of you marinating in that adversity and moaning and groaning and complaining, you do something that we're trying to share with these guys called the set of the sail, which simply says this, that it's not what happens to you that has the greatest effect on your future, but it's what you do about what happens to you. And you said that, hey, instead of crying and moaning and groaning, I decided to do something. And I hope that these young men understand that that's what successful people do. No matter what happens, their first thought is, okay, what am I going to do about it? I tore my ACL, fine, what am I going to do about it? The NBA don't want me anymore, what am I going to do about that? I've never wrote a song before, what am I going to do about that? Now I got another turn to make, what am I going to do about that? And I think that if we can understand how it worked for you, and that's a principle, then it'll work for them, because life, as you know, Harvey, is about overcoming. Success in life is about overcoming storms. And if these guys understand that and the storm hits them, because we know there's only three things can happen. Either you're in a storm, just left the storm, or you're on the way to the storm. But once you understand that, and obviously you do, then it doesn't matter anymore.
Yes, Marvin, you're right. And really good lesson. You put it in a really cool way. For me, I actually love when something doesn't work out. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's always been exciting and new things that have come when something didn't work the way I wanted it to. And that's, I guess, a little hard to think about. But when I've run up against a dead end, that's usually, if not always, led to something great in another direction. So I think the earlier that all of us and all of you that are working in this boss program can accept the fact that there are going to be failures, period. That no one lives without failure. There's going to be some major failures, but if you can start to appreciate and start to digest them and accept them as positives, I think you'll really win, and you'll come out of them so much better. For me, I look for the failures because I know that they're going to lead to something else. And I don't like go out searching failure, but I know that if I'm going down a path and something hard happens, I don't get scared. I don't get worried. I don't complain. I don't say, oh, why didn't this work out? I say, okay, this is good. We're getting close. This is going to be one step away from something really cool. So the quicker you guys can accept the fact that we will have failures lead to great things, and understand how to bounce off of them, then I think you'll find your way to success quicker. So good question, Marvin, and good point. Thank you.
Is it safe to say then that there's a principle that says that inside of all adversity, not some, but all adversity, there's an equal or greater benefit if you search?
Yeah, I think that's a good statement. And I think inside of all adversity, I don't know if, when you lose someone you love or something happens like that, it's a little harder to put that in that bucket. But I think in life, when you face adversity, there can always be positivity that comes from it. I think that's probably the way I would phrase it.
Okay. Absolutely.
Hey, Harvey. Again, just want to piggyback off of him. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everything you said. There's something that you spoke on behalf of on the path of success that has come up reoccurringly throughout every mentor we brought on this program. And the boys have noticed it. It's really something important to note, and that's sacrifice. You mentioned sacrifice and having to choose what's important versus what you may have wanted in the moment or may have seemed tempting or fun, but really sacrificing and choosing the thing that you knew was going to eventually lead you to where you wanted to go, and being in that discipline, being in that commitment, being in that center of gravity to just continuously bring yourself back to that choice as an automatic decision. It's shown up in every leader we brought on this meetings with boss, and it just is something that reoccurs often that needs to be brought to attention.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. And I think you'll find throughout history, most people that have accomplished anything great have had to sacrifice something else. Unfortunately, you can't have everything. You can't have all the experiences and leisure and hanging out and partying and doing all the things you want to do, then also have huge success in business. You have to be able to sacrifice and be willing to do things that other people won't do to succeed. And that's really a key point. Always remember that there's going to be somebody out there that's going to be trying to outwork you. Like if you want to be an athlete and you're going to say, I'm going to shoot 500 shots a day as a basketball player, there's going to be somebody that's going to shoot 1,000 shots a day. And that's the mentality that you also have to have. And that's a little part of my humbling and opening your eyes and being receptive to learning. You have to be realistic and think like, there's always going to be somebody better than me. There's always going to be somebody working harder than me. And that's what triggers the sacrifice for me. I would always think, okay, I've accomplished this level of success, but if I sleep or if I slow down or if I stop, somebody's going to fly past me. And so that's what really inspired me to continue to sacrifice. Even when I was in 8th grade, being cut from my basketball team made me realize if you don't do something drastic, you don't do something different, you don't do something that somebody else isn't doing, you're not going to make up the ground you have to make. So I sacrificed that whole summer, that whole year to getting great at basketball. And then I did the same thing in music. After I made the change in career paths, I said, I've got a long ways to go. Some people have been writing songs and producing songs since they were tiny kids. I played basketball. I got a long ways to go. I got to sacrifice. I have to make up ground. I have to be better. And then later in my career, the sacrifice continues because I always had that drive to be the best, and I always had that drive to win. And I also always knew that there were other people out there sacrificing while I was sitting on my lounge chair. You know, that's the mentality you have to have. Every time you're resting, somebody else is working. So that will continue to hopefully inspire you to work hard and be willing to sacrifice. And it's really a balance, because you can't sacrifice your whole life just for success, because at that point you're thinking, what does success mean to me, and what brings me ultimate happiness? For me, the ability to work hard, the ability to provide for my family, to be an entrepreneur, to build a business and build a company, that was happiness to me. That was something I've always dreamed of, something I've always wanted to do. So that's what I sacrificed for. For you, it might be something different, and that might be something you have to sacrifice for. So it's really about knowing yourself, knowing your priorities, knowing what brings you satisfaction and happiness in life, and then setting a plan to get there. But for me, it's always been about sacrifice and dedication and doing things that other people won't do. And I can promise you this, if you're willing to do the work, and you're willing to do and not quit and not give up, I really honestly believe there's really not anything you can't do. And I know that sounds far-fetched. It sounds like one of these things people say, but if you wanted to be an astronaut, or if you wanted to be a doctor, if you wanted to be an NBA player, if you want anything you wanted to do, if you were willing and able to do enough work, you could do it. I mean, there's been tons of people who had zero talent, absolutely zero talent for sports, be great at sports. You know, there's been tons of people that didn't have all the brains in the world be great at something in academia because they worked, and they outworked everyone else, and they did it better than everyone else. And they were willing to do the things that no one else was willing to do repeatedly and over a long period of time. And if you can do that, and you can have that mentality, I honestly believe that if you set a path and your journey is to go in that direction, you can do it.
Absolutely. And then you said it perfectly, and it's something that I want all the boys in this moment, whether you have a piece of paper in front of you, you have your phone, it's something we all should write down. And it's what are you willing to sacrifice to get where you want to be? And as easy as you want to make that, as hard as you want to make that, it's just something you got to keep on revisiting every single day. So. And
I think what helps too in that sense is to realize where you want to be first, because that will determine what you need to sacrifice. Like if you wanted to be a championship surfer, you wouldn't sacrifice going to the beach with your friends, because that would probably lead to being a great surfer. So figuring out what you want to do, and then figure out what you're willing to sacrifice, I think is an important distinction.
Thank you for that distinction. It's so important.
I got a question, Mr. Mason.
Yep.
So do you produce yourself? You do, right?
Produce music? Yes, I produce music. I write music. I sit at the piano. I get on my computer. I program. I use Logic and Ableton. I use Pro Tools. I bring in live musicians sometimes, and I work with musicians. I interact with the artists, record their vocals. I mix, use the console to finish my records, and then I turn in the songs to the record companies or to the TV film studios. And then the other side of my business is I also produce movies. So in that career, a producer is a little bit different than a music producer. The producer of a film does a lot of the development. They're buying intellectual property rights or books or life rights, things like that you can make films off of. You're doing budgets. You're finding and hiring cast and directors. You're shopping and pitching your ideas to studios. Once the projects are greenlit, then you're working with location scouts to find locations and directors and fleshing out the script. So two different styles of producing, but yes, I produce.
My other question is, I'm a pretty big fan of instrumentals, and rap songs or whatever, hip hop and all that, and sampling. Like how does like the deal get done for that, and how do the artists like think of adding that into their songs?
Well, it's a long history of sampling and how it happened. I mean, producers started early, just taking records on their turntables and rapping over someone else's track. And then that evolved into them adding drum machines over the top of the original record that they were spinning. And then that evolved to people playing full songs around a certain portion of an old pre-existing vinyl record. And at the beginning, it was the Wild West. Nobody paid for anything. You just used the song, and then you put out your song with somebody else's record. And say you sampled James Brown, which happened a lot. You know, people sampled James Brown and rapped on it, and then James Brown got mad. He said, "This is not fair. You cannot continue to use my music and rap over the top of it without paying me." So there became a fight in, you know, the federal government, and its copyright office oversees things like this. The Recording Academy actually had a lot to do with this, but passing new legislation that regulates what people can do with pre-existing music. So right now, the way that it works is if you sample someone else's work, you have to include them in the publishing, which is the formula for who wrote what portion of the song. You know, a song's 100% of the song. If you wrote the music, that would be 50%. If you wrote the lyrics, that would be 50%. Together, that equals 100% of the song. Now, if you use a sample, then you have to negotiate with the original license holder for that piece of music and say, how much of the publishing do you want? They might say, I want all the publishing. You're using my samples, the entire bed of the music. Or they might say, you're only using a little piece. I want 20%. And then so you negotiate that. And then there's another thing, and this is getting very in the weeds, but there's a master license, which is who owns the new recording, the new piece of music that you made. Maybe you're, you know, Lil Wayne or somebody, and you sampled an old James Brown song. The master recording, whatever that new piece of work is owned now jointly by Lil Wayne's record company and James Brown. And that is an agreement that has to be negotiated. So there's a publishing bucket, and there's the master recording bucket. And the sampler, whoever was sampled, gets to participate in incomes from both places, and those are negotiations that take place.
Oh, okay.
It's illegal to release a song. Yeah, it's illegal to release a song with a sample on it without having gone through that process of negotiation.
Okay. That's a lot going on there.
Yeah, I'm trying to simplify it. There's a lot more than that, but that's kind of the basic idea.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions, guys?
One question. Mr. Mason, if you
Yeah.
hadn't tore your ACL, would that have changed who you are today?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I probably would have played basketball for either the NBA or overseas somewhere, and I would have met different people in my life. I would have possibly married a different person. I would have had different kids. I would have had different lessons. I would have had different experiences. Absolutely. You know, that's where I talk about the path. There's no wrong path. You know, that could have been a cool path. Maybe I would have been in the NBA for 10 years and played basketball and won the, you know, world championship, and that would have sent me in that direction. Or maybe I would have gotten cut after 1 year and been in, you know, Scandinavia playing in some weird league or something, and married a girl from Germany and had kids who spoke German and lived in Europe. You know, it really would have drastically affected the outcome of my life. And I don't sit around thinking about that. I don't really think about like what would have happened if I had gotten a chance to be in the NBA, because it would have been such a difference and had a drastic effect on my life. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be talking to you guys, that's for sure.
As someone who's made it extremely far and has a very diverse portfolio in terms of things that you've accomplished and done, can you speak a little bit on the pain of discipline versus the pain of regret?
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess the problem is I'm not a big regret person, and it goes to my theory of there's no wrong journey, you know, and I agree with you, and I know where you're trying to go with this. There's the value of hard work, and the pain involved in hard work really does not compare. It's tiny in relation to the pain of regret, because if you miss an opportunity because you didn't work for it or you didn't do what was necessary to accomplish it, you're going to look back and say, dang, I should have done that. It was so simple. All I had to do was X, Y, and Z, and I would have gotten this. But the bigger picture for me is if you didn't do X, Y, and Z and you didn't get that, okay, what's next? There's not going to be a time where I'm sitting around having all this regret. The problem is you have to have the hard work mentality then you can release your regret mentality. Because if you don't have your hard work mentality, you're just going to walk around with regret all the time. For me, as long as I know in my heart I'm working hard and I have goals, I have places I want to be, I have things I want to accomplish, then there's no regret, because I know I've done the work. I know that it wasn't meant to be, and I know that was not the part of my journey I was supposed to be on. So I don't regret it. I worked hard. I sacrificed. I did everything I could to be in the NBA. I tore my ACL. It didn't work. No regret. Next. If you don't do the work, the regret will be painful. If I had played 4 years of college basketball and was lazy, and I didn't have an injury and I just didn't make it, but I was lazy, at that point, I probably would have had a lot of regret. And I would have said, I should have worked harder. I should have tried harder. I should have learned more. I should have been more humble. I should have sacrificed more. I should have been more passionate. But because those things are already part of my formula and part of how I approach my daily life, I can afford to release my regret. And I can afford not to sit and stew in regret, because I've done the steps that allow me to transition instead of sit in regret.
Thank you. And this might be personal, but who do you attest to this this formula that you just inherently have? Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it came from my father, who was he was a really good dad, but he was really hard. He was really tough. And it was the benefit of growing up around a dad who was really hard on you and expected a lot from you. There's a lot of downside to that as well. I don't know how many of you have parents that are, really hard on you. But for me, again, it kind of goes with my philosophy. I don't have any regrets in the way that I was raised. And I love the way my dad raised me. My mom had a hand in it too, but my dad was the reason that I am the hard worker that I am, the person that will sacrifice anything to get a win. The person that taught me the value of hard work was my dad. So I think I'm very fortunate that I got that from him. And I don't know if he necessarily was doing it on purpose, but he convinced me that if you don't work hard, you're not going to accomplish anything. And he did that, and he led by example. He was a musician, and he did everything like 100%. He was crazy. My dad was a little crazy. Like if he all of a sudden decided he wanted to start jogging, he'd be like, I think I'm going to try jogging for exercise, or running, getting cardio. He would start with like a mile, and then by day 2, he'd be at 2 miles. And then in a week, he'd be running like 20 miles a day. He was just obsessive and crazy like that. And I think I saw him in that way. And he was that way with his career, with his family, with his fitness, everything he did. And I saw that it really produced results. And when he worked hard, he accomplished things. And I think that's where it came from. Again, you have to balance it though, because there are downsides to that. And there are things that come as an artifact of a process like that. But that's where I initially got it. Then when I went to college, it was really reinforced by my coach and my teammates, because I saw the instant results of hard work. And I saw on a team level how we were doing things different than other teams, and how my coach was making us do things that other teams weren't doing. And I would talk to my friends who were playing at other programs, and I'd say, did you guys do this and do that? And did you guys have to do, double days and run this and lift that and study table here? And they're like, no, we didn't do all that. And then I'd see us win, and I'd say, oh, wow, we're doing stuff that other people are not doing. So my dad instituted in me initially. My coach in college reinforced it. And then as I started my business, I saw it work for me at an early age. And I saw how the lessons I learned really translated to success and early wins as a songwriter and producer. And that made it completely part of who I am. And that, I think, are the 3 steps that put it in me.
Thank you so much. Marvin, your mic's off. Still off. There you go.
There we go. Harvey, I noticed some common threads at the different turns in your life as far as your philosophy goes. And what it's saying to me that people are absolutely right who says that the major determining factor in where your life ends up is your philosophy, because from the beginning to where we are now, it seems as though those principles of going the extra mile, learning from defeat, I heard you constantly say that more than anything, you wanted to win, that you was willing to pay the price to win, and that you wanted to do something even more special. You wanted to make some kind of significant contribution, and you wanted to be different. So how do you feel about that?
I think you're right, and you've nailed it. I think that was, I don't know exactly, other than what I kind of outlined for you. I don't know where exactly it came from, but I definitely feel that my passion was to accomplish something great and to accomplish greatness in life, whatever that may mean. It doesn't necessarily mean, just being rich. That's a great thing to strive for, but that's not for everybody, and it's not everyone's goal. But to strive for something, to strive for an accomplishment. And you can have great accomplishments in all different areas of your life. Raising an incredible family is a huge accomplishment. That could be a great goal. Being the best person that runs a great program like Boss, that's a great goal. Being somebody who puts this together and hosts this and helps young adults, that's an amazing accomplishment. So there's different varieties of accomplishments. And I think that everybody has something that they can do and contribute and set their sights on. I think you guys are really, really on your way. I have to say that you've already learned a valuable lesson, whether it's just who you guys are or from this program or from your upbringing. You guys are one step closer to being successful and accomplishing greatness because you're on this call. There's a whole lot of people that, I don't know, what is it, 10:30? That a lot of people are still asleep. A lot of people that are playing video games. There's a lot of people that are lounging around watching YouTube videos right now. And you guys are choosing to be here and listen and learn and grow and humble yourself and have your ears open and hopefully have some information that will improve you as a person and improve your future. So I think you guys are on the right path, which is exciting. A lot of times you're trying to beg people to listen to people that are helping them. You guys have a great audience. You said you had 47 people on this call. So 47 people have taken the first few steps to becoming great at something. So congratulations on that. And I have to say that this program is incredible. These are the things that are important for people to learn. I was lucky. I had somebody teach it to me. I figured it out. And I think these 47 people are very, very lucky so far.
Wow. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, Harvey, we're going to be a respecter of your time. And we asked you to do an hour, and then you've done an hour, and you've really, it's amazing that we bring the guy, I don't care, now Harvey's from Los Angeles. Last week we had a guy from New York. The other day we had a guy from Denver, and then we had Bishop from Cleveland, and we bring all these people and they do all kinds of different stuff. But they keep saying the same thing, guys. They keep saying the same thing. Max effort. Max effort. Don't quit. Persist.
Mr. Glenn, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So, for the speaker, did you have did you have a plan C? What would you have done if you didn't succeed in music?
Yeah, my plan C was I was going to be an attorney. I studied political science and English in college and had a double major, and I interned for 2 years for the county attorney in Arizona. So I was going to go into the law profession if music didn't work out.
So are you happy with the path that you took, taking music instead of doing law?
Absolutely. I'm very happy. I'm happy every day, Jordan. Like, that's my thing. The journey is what makes me happy. It's not the end result. And here's the other thing, Everett, you said mass effort, right? Mass efforts.
Yeah.
Oh, max. Okay. Yeah. I like mass effort.
Okay.
So tons and tons of effort is what it's going to take to be successful, right? But that sounds horrible. Max effort, mass effort, whatever you want. That doesn't sound good. It just sounds like, oh, this is going to be a lot of work. So here's the thing, you guys. Here's the thing. You have to love the work. And I love it. I love effort. I love hard work. It's fun. It's not about, and Jordan, you asked the question, are you happy with your choice? It's not about my choice. It's about me getting into the mindset of loving and appreciating the steps that it takes to get anywhere. Yeah. Like, it's about my profession. I know it's going to be hard work, but the hard work is the fun. That's the fun for me. It's not, like riding jet skis and, riding horses out in the country somewhere. What's fun for me is the work, putting in the effort. And at the end of the day, when I'm done at the end of the day and I'm tired, that's the success. That's the fun. It's like, wow, that was great. The max effort is the joy for me. And I do it in everything in my life. It's like when I'm washing the car, I'm trying to wash it and I'm trying to get the top, trying to get the bottom. I get underneath the wheels. Like most people don't clean behind the tires. I clean behind the tires because the work and doing something the right way and getting better at something is the fun. If you look at it like, oh, max effort or mass effort, this is going to be so much work, that's not going to lead to success. You have to enjoy it. You have to relish it. You have to look forward to it. And you have to know that it is what life and the journey is about, is doing the work. And then when you get to either a successful place, which I've gotten to, or a dead end, which I've also gotten to, you see it as that. It's a part of the journey, and you pivot. And then guess what you do then? Then you start the work again, and you love it, and you enjoy it, and you appreciate it. So that's my thing. So thank you guys for having me. I would love to have you out to my facility. Hopefully when all this COVID nonsense goes away, come visit me. We can talk more. Everett always has my email if there's anything I can do to help you guys. I love the fact that you're involved in this program. I love the fact that you're one step closer to becoming really successful, really great, or winning at something, whatever that may be. I love the fact that you guys are taking the time to talk about the boss mentality and economics and finance and effort and emotion. All those things are so important. And I love that you're on this call willing to listen and learn. So thank you for having me. It's great being here. I'm here for you anytime.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much, Harvey.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. Bye-bye.
You guys don't leave, guys.
Thank you.
Harvey's leaving, but everybody else stay on. Because what I'd like, a Bishop, I'd like you to, if you could unpack some of the points that Harvey made. You were starting to do that before we end, though. If you could unpack some key points, maybe 2 or 3 points, and then say it in your own way that these guys can incorporate.
Well, Everett, I'm looking at Mr. Thomas up there, and I, something tells me he's gonna get away with this information. And I find it hard to believe, Everett, that week after week you coming up with these great individuals, because we had a great guest last week and it was hard. I'm thinking to myself, now how you gonna top that? And Lord, look what happens. One of the things that I hope, and why I'm here on these calls, guys, is that you understand that what's going to determine how your life ends is going to be exactly what he said. It's going to be, what kind of philosophy do you have? What is it that you know? And he's saying that he had a hard dad that instilled in him to work hard, to go the extra mile, don't be moaning and groaning and complaining and blaming. So isn't it a coincidence? These are boss principles. Yes. Everett told me before the call, Everett, you said he's boss. Absolutely. Because here's a guy that took them same principles, took that same philosophy, even in adversity, even when he tore his ACL. That could be devastating, Everett, to an athlete at his level. Because when you're playing in the Final Four 2 years in a row, that normally means you're somewhere close to the NBA. But it also means that if you experience that kind of adversity, majority of the people are going to do something crazy. They're going to start using drugs, start drinking, and spend the rest of their life moaning and groaning. But because of this philosophy that he had as a little boy, he just pivoted. And so I'm hoping not only did we understand we need to start working on our philosophy, but to make sure that part of your philosophy, more than just going the extra mile and learning from defeat and becoming a winner, understand how important it is to tweak, the tweaking factor, which means very seldom do we get it right the first time. So don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to make some adjustment. Secondly, Everett, he talked about this paying the price. Well, part of the boss philosophy is this. Everyone that's on this call, there isn't but two things you have to do to be successful. Number one, you got to have desire. Did you hear him? Even before you make the sacrifices, you got to know what you want. That's what desire is. You have to know what you want. So desire is important. The second part of it is this. You must determine the price for what you want, and then you must commit to pay that price in full. And guys, that's where we lose a lot of folks.
Yes, sir.
There's an old saying, everybody want to go to heaven, but don't nobody want to die. And that sums up a lot of people. And so for all of the folks here, and I see the greatness of it, a lot of these young guys are dreaming big, man, and that's huge. You hear what Harvey said? He had these big dreams, but he said that he was willing to pay the price. As a matter of fact, he found joy in paying the price because as the great Les Brown says, that your success will come in hard. It will come described. It will come in disguised as hard work. So what we really saying is this, guys, we have to get comfortable doing uncomfortable stuff. You'll never find your greatness in no comfort zone. It's going to be in the risk zone, which means you're going to have to do some things that you're not comfortable with. You might have to go and do like you're doing in Boston, get involved with math. Look what don't happen to this group because they stop running from it and run to it. A whole world of possibilities has opened up because they're doing things that at one time probably was uncomfortable.
Yes.
So these principles that you're sharing with boss, let me tell you something, guys. There's people out there playing. I had a mentor. He charged $80,000 an hour to go talk about these same boss principles. And that's only if your company was inside the United States. He charged $100,000 if your company was outside the United States. So people say, well, who would pay that kind of money? No, the real question is what he talking about. He talking boss, Everett. Yeah. So the value of this information, if you can get it inside of you, it could change your whole world. It can take you through the storms because, guys, it's not going to be a smooth road. As a matter of fact, anything going up is going to be thorny and rough. But once you understand that, you're all right. You hear what I guess said that, listen, I love adversity. What he's saying is he realized now that's where it is. That's where the nuggets is.
Exactly.
See, a lot of people go around life, they complaining about no blessings, and they don't understand life. It's like diamonds. Diamonds don't look like no diamond in its natural state. It look like an old dirty rock. And if you don't know better, you'll kick it and still be talking about, boy, I'd be glad when something good happens. Diamond got to get polished.
Sure. Yes. Sir. Right?
Diamonds have to be polished. What I see, why I get on this call on a Saturday is this. Everett, I see a bunch of diamonds, man. And I see them getting polished. And I pray, but at 66, I don't know if I'm going to make it, Everett, that I could be around to see where boss takes these folks. But let me tell you what. If you get this stuff inside of you, it has you can be anything you want to be. Another thing he talked about, success don't mean just money. Success means to me, you're achieving whatever it is that you say you want. There's a bunch of folks with millions of dollars that's miserable. But if you say, I want to grow tomatoes, Everett, and you go out and do that, you're successful. See, don't just judge yourself by money because, hey, everybody got a pencil, write this down. The real value in life is not what you get, it's what you become. The real value in life is not what you get, it's what you become. You guys should be asking yourself, what am I becoming because I'm involved in boss? What am I, if you had a job, what am I becoming because I go to work every day? The money is not the real value. What are you becoming? 90% of the people got jobs every day, hate their jobs. That's why the highest heart attack rate is on Monday morning. People going jobs they can't stand, right? You ever seen folks got a job, they ride past their job 3-4 times before they pull in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And what boss, these principles, if you can get them, not like a map give you a simulation how to get somewhere. A compass will always point you the right way. You get these principles inside you, I don't care what happened and when it happened, it'll point you the way. If you have adversity, the principles say, okay, what you gonna do about it? Right? I don't know, okay, I'm looking at my internet. Now, and lastly, guys, let me just say this to you, that it's unbelievable, as Harvey said, that on a Saturday morning, a group of young men don't got up they ain't smoking nothing, they ain't drinking nothing, right? And they getting the information because let me tell you something. If somebody out who got $80,000 to pay for this kind of information, somebody who's highly successful, and if you're getting the same information somebody who already got the money getting, then hey, you know what? It'll do for you what it's doing for them.
No excuse.
No excuses.
Hey, on that note, we're gonna wrap it up, and we're gonna reconvene in a couple of weeks. We're gonna go through the Rolodex and see who we can get on here.
we got Felix Giles Everett on deck.
Oh, Felix, that's right, Felix Giles. We got
they're gonna love Felix Giles.
The first NASCAR, the first black guy to race NASCAR. He was a basketball, football player in high school, and who's done all kind of stuff. And yeah, we got Felix, and yeah, so just fasten your seatbelt, guys. Stay tuned.
Oh, absolutely.
In a couple weeks.
I want to add one more thing. In terms of the people we bring on, it's really important, y'all, that y'all engaging with them, right? Absolutely. They can come out and they can say whatever they're gonna say. It's the questions you ask that are relevant to you, important to you, need to come out of you, that are going to bring the information, have the information flow out of these individuals that need to be brought onto this meeting. You know, like we have to meet them halfway. A part of being boss is being present, is coming forward. So
and there's no such thing as a bad question, guys. No such thing as the only stupid question is the one you don't ask.
I would hope that everyone's bringing pencil and paper, more than just paper. You're bringing a journal, because that can be the headquarters for the answers. And because look at the kind of people, we couldn't have paid that guy no kind of money to get the information he gave us. And write this down too. He have invited boss to his facility. Now, Everett, I hope some kind of way, and I'm gonna put it in the universe, that my arrival there and this trip can all be together, because see, listen to me. He said, come on out to my facility. Now, what kind of facility would a guy who runs the Grammy have? I think he might at least have a refrigerator in there or something. Come on.
And on that note.
Yeah, no, so this is yeah, that's right. But there's no such thing as a dumb question, guys. And no, just right. Whatever is on you, whatever comes to your mind, in your head, like how did you do that? Anything. There's no
on topic, off topic. You feel me?
How was it working with Beyonce?
Yeah, that's that. He dropped some big names.
Yeah, how did you get with LeBron James to do that story? That was one of the most awesome videos I ever saw. Every day he did LeBron and his guys. So if he's running with them kind of people, they say birds of a feather flock together, and he flocking with Beyonce, he flocking with LeBron James, and he flocking with Boss.
Mm.
Yeah. You guys in a great place, man. Cause wow.
Hey, but the young folks say, you better recognize.
Yeah, better recognize.
Yeah.
It's funny because back here in Cleveland, Ohio, back on the Midwest, everybody want to know how I'm getting balls. They say, what kind of guys? I say, listen, them young guys is getting the same information that them CEOs is getting. And you know what, guys? I know some CEOs watching you guys now, chopping at the bits, hoping they could be the first one in line to get y'all at graduation because they know what's coming out this group here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yes, sir. All right, guys.
All right.
Get to working out, doing whatever you do, and then we'll regroup pretty soon. I'll give you a call, Bob.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Thank you, Mr. Glenn.
Be good.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Send me a copy of the tape, Everett.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, Mr. Glenn.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn.